I think the biggest thing suppliers gain on a national GPO contract is credibility. So there's a lot of things that go into that award process. And even if you're brand new and you're like, look, I don't even know the first place to go, are you willing to have a conversation with us and talk through this? I guarantee you 75% of the GPO people will have time to do that.
What are the three things that you would really want to say? Focus on these three things.
Understand the market they're in and where they are. What issues do they have to solve? What is the differentiator in your product that would make them entertain a conversation? And three is
welcome back to another episode. Chad, it's great to have you back on Tuesday Talks with Toomey. Last week we really got into some interesting information about bringing value, to the client executives, the account executives, but how that translates to the member. Today we want to talk and really keep diving into that, and how do we get the attention of the member that we're, with the contracts that we do have or products we have. We could talk a little bit about on and off contract, but what is the best practices we can also do when working with you to really present it in its best light, and try to find, overall uniqueness to a problem that's happening in the hospital, just like you had said before. So let's kind of just start around opening the door, right? We have an evaluation going on. We have clinicians that might like the product. Maybe, we have a new contract we've launched, and maybe it's an innovation, breakthrough technology award even. What are like just a starting point, right? Let's just open that door to the member. And what really gets your attention? We talked about the value prop last week, but what are some of the other, when we compare maybe disruptors and Me Too's, what gets your attention that says, hey, I could really take this and really show something unique to my member?
I think it goes back to what problems is that going to solve, and what is the interest or feedback that's coming from the trial, if there's a trial, or what's being presented, right? Because I think if we look holistically, it's not very complicated on what people are trying to do, right? It's save money, it's reduce waste by saving time on the staff or even reducing what's thrown away. And how do you lower the burden on the staff when they're trying to use the product? So it's what is your product going to do to take some of that burden off of the already overworked staff, alleviate some of the cost pressures, even if some cases the product is a little bit more expensive. What is it going to do on the back end with reimbursement, with things like that are going to help paint the full picture of why this is a better opportunity?
Yeah. Do you ever get involved in, let's say we get the door open, we have that conversation, and the member's like, yeah, we want to take a look at this. Where does your level of involvement, maybe it's a better way to ask it, is that you want to be involved in that process along the way? So when the trial's being set up and the opportunity's happening, there's a clinical review, it's going to value analysis, etc. How much do you want to be attached to that? Is it something you want to see through the end, or you want to be as needed? Kind of talk about that communication you want to have, and what makes sense for you.
I think it's unique to the hospital partner, right? Because in some cases, as with suppliers, right, me and my peers are working with those hospital partners to be that trusted advisor. Some of those facilities let us have all access, let us have a seat at the table. Some, are arm's length away and they like to have an independent review. I think the goal of all GPOs are be more of that trusted advisor seat at the table. And I think in a lot of cases, we do have that ability to be part of the process all the way through. I can think of multiple members, and I don't know that we need to be part of everyone. I think it's always really great to kind of summarize what's going on. And I say that because not that we can change the outcome, but if there's some misunderstandings or information that maybe not being received correctly with some of the hospital users, depending on our relationships with those people, we could reach out and kind of talk through and say, hey, I heard this feedback. Is there anything that we can do to help you better understand that? I mean, I had an example this morning of a trial going on where the supplier reached out and said, hey, there was some interesting feedback about the product we're trialing, but I don't think that the physician is hearing the information correctly. Is there a way that you can pick up the phone and call them and just kind of talk through and see if there's a way that we can help them better understand? So I'm not going to say that we're the silver bullet to get you all the support and answers, but depending on the relationship with the hospitals, we do have those relationships in many of our members.
Yeah, that's great. I've heard you say a couple times now, the trusted advisor, and building that reputation with the member so they're coming to you for multiple opportunities and understanding that, what the GPO brings in value to the member. We, on the other side of the fence, from a strategic directors and from, manufacturer's side, a lot of times the questions I get is, what else, why do I need a GPO? Like what else can it do for me other than, be a contract and have pricing parity or some of the other general ones? But, as you're trying to be a trusted advisor at the hospital member level, right? We're trying to be a trusted vendor and a trusted partner as well. So there's some key like parallel paths there around, again, that bridge between the member and the manufacturers on contract, and of course there's you in the middle. What role do you think you would want to have with the member if someone who just got a contract and they're in their room with a product and they're having a conversation and they've involved you early? How would you want the feedback to come from, like one person? Would you want it to come from a sales team? Like, who do you want to hear from the company routinely so that you can be consistent on what's happening around something that you've brought to the table to the member?
I mean, it's probably going to be the local staff, right? I mean, I can think of many instances where I talk to national accounts quite often, but I still talk to the local staff, the local sales force that's actually doing the work. I mean, I think that's going to give you more information on what's really going on the ground, and it's not going to be, two layers of communication away. And I think at the end of the day, right, we're all working towards, my goal to Premier is to maximize the value of spend on our GPO contracts. So it is beneficial for us to have an uptick in our GPO contract spend. And that happens by getting new categories, new suppliers, new opportunities to be on Premier. But again, to be part of the trusted advisor, right? I mean, we still need to work with our members on one side to understand what the true needs are and what they're looking to do, and then work with those new supplier partners or our supplier partners to continuously show the value and the reason why they earned a national award, right? Like the national award, to your point, not everyone wants to do it, but I think the biggest thing suppliers gain on a national GPO contract is credibility, right? You have been awarded a contract in a category by a membership committee who had to look over your proposal, understand the products that you have, the back order issues, the recall issues, your ability to serve our membership, your safety contingency plans on product issues, your product performance. So there's a lot of things that go into that award process that are vetting you on behalf of our membership, saying, look, we're going to rubber stamp that this supplier has shown us that they can provide the service that they're offering and can deliver on that value.
Kind of a bold question for you. Do the members understand that too? Because I feel like, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole too far, but right, when you go through the process and you get a contract, and you do all these things, and you're absolutely right. There are so many pros to getting a GPO contract, because you should feel honored to get one in the sense of you did a lot of work, There's a lot of work that goes into getting an award, and when you get an award, you should be very proud of that. But do the members realize how much vetting goes on, even in like in a renewal or being added to a contract? Like, because sometimes you get that, well, thanks, glad the national contracts launched, but we're still going to do our own local, right? Now, local can be for pricing, but
Mhm.
then they make us go through the same vetting process almost all over again. So, is there, if you can answer that, but what is that correlation of like trying to bring in some of that information, or maybe that's the trusted advisor that you can bring to the table to help bridge that story a little better, that hey, we just went through all this with the GPO.
Um, I mean, do all hospitals understand that? No. I mean, I would be lying if I told you they did. I mean, I think in some cases it goes back to our conversation last week, right? Like a lot of people in the organization have relationships with different partners, and some partners in certain categories don't do GPOs, don't work with GPOs, don't work with national things. So supply chain may have a trust but verify approach to that. And they may go look at their other partners that they have relationships with. Do I think the physicians and the clinicians and the nursing staff at the end of the product cycle know that when they're requesting a new product? No. And I think in some cases there are suppliers that have been very successful, that have a corporate stance that they won't work with GPOs because they have such a strong relationship with their clinician and users. But I think in those cases where we have shown them the value of the GPO and the work that we do and the partnership that we create with them, that tone is changing. And there's some that are coming and working with us. I think it ebbs and flows. And I think the only way that as a national GPO can continue to show their value is to show the suppliers how our field teams partner with those suppliers and how we work to help them at least get exposure, at least have their opportunity reviewed and discussed. Maybe that's just a supply chain. If we have a category with 4 suppliers, it's national, it's not committed. We're going to run those analytics. We're going to send them to the members and say, look, this category, here's your 4 iterations of how that contract could work. Now you need to make the decision. Um, in some of those cases, like if there is a big opportunity and maybe it's a new supplier, a diversity, a niche, somebody that's not a big player in that market, we should rely on that supplier to, again, bring us information about why they're in the
Yeah.
space, what they're doing differently, what references they may have, who's adopted it before. And then I think even if the opportunity doesn't work the first time with that supplier, is work with those hospitals to understand, like, what is the feedback? What did we do differently? Because some cases the product could be 100% clinically everything acceptable, and maybe they're just not comfortable with the amount of inventory you have on hand, or your plan for ramping up stock, maybe your relationship with distributors. I think there's a lot of information that can be learned through losing just as much as can be learned through winning. And
Yeah.
as you get that feedback, you know, take that feedback and become better.
Yeah, I love that. We mentioned it before, is getting a GPO contract's a lot of work, but the real work is once you've got it, is managing your GPO, not just your contract, but managing with the GPO itself and all of the services that they have to offer. And you might not win everything, right? And sometimes it is just going to be a conversation starter, but it's okay, to have the connections and have understand which channel to go and what the feedback is. And everybody, of course, is one IDN is one IDN because they all have a different segment of what they need or what their savings could be, wherever they want to looking for SKU reduction or cost reduction, but I really like that because supply chain is a big piece of this today. And if supply chain maybe didn't get involved in the right step, or they do have a bigger say at some IDNs than others, is the right team from the manufacturer at the table? And that could be a really good question to ask up front as well. Is, hey, we're willing to bring the whole team, right? We could bring everybody, but let's bring the right people. Do they want to meet with supply chain? Do they want to meet with our clinical team? Do they want to meet with our operating officer to understand global manufacturing? These are all questions that you could be having with the member that could win the deal. It's not just the features and benefits. And relying on your GPO to help get some of these things clarified up front builds your company story, not just the product, but again, that total overarching value you bring of, here's where we are from, a manufacturing side. Here's where we are from a supply side. Here we are from an environmental side, right? These are all the things that we're doing to reduce our carbon footprint. That could be a winner out of the gate and you don't even realize it, right? But really good questions to bring to the table to, the field teams and the executives and say, hey, which one of these matter here today? And we're willing to come to the table and open our books a little bit more and share that information. Yeah,
Add on to
good
that a little
info.
bit. I would say to any, and it's maybe more the new suppliers, right? Or the suppliers with differentiated product opportunities on the new contract, right? We do a really good job of having monthly supplier showcases where people can jump on our zone calls, our 3 zones across the country, and it's a 15-minute, hey, here's what's new, here's what's different, here's what's going on. And I think in part of that, right, we ask them to come to the table with, what is your target list? And that's based on like a vetted target list, or even, hey, we've reached out, we haven't got any feedback, but these are the reasons why we think they're a good fit. A lot of times people just default to they're the biggest members in the territory. That's where we're going to struggle, right? Because we don't know,
Yeah.
like what happens if they just signed a contract last month and then I walk in there and be like, hey, you want to do this, but I don't know they signed a contract. So it's just kind of better understanding, like, hey, and be honest, like, hey, this is a reason why we think we're a good fit for this health system, but I've had zero traction and zero connection with this member. Like that's not a bad response. That's honest and saying, hey, I've tried, I'm not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the process. You start engagement, right? You get a good call or email from a vendor. They've got a good value prop. What does your process look like? Just kind of okay, I got this information now. I'm going to start investigating it, right? I'm going to start looking into what is it like. They're going to look at their sales. You're going to look at their contract. Are you going to actually go in and read like in the portal? Like you're going to find out more about the information of the company. Like just what's that process you're going to do before you go and present this to the member?
No, I think you do all of the above, right? I think you understand the category first. So whether it's bandages, dressings, and gauze, or whether it's rev cycle management, if somebody reaches out to you, you want to understand where the spend is today. So either we look at supplier reported sales, we look at member PO and AP data, however they submit that information to us, just to understand the current landscape. Then you try to figure out how much time is left on the agreement. Like, is it brand new or is it expiring in a year? And what's the lift of that? There's other tools that we have through our clinical teams that we look at disruption. Is it a category that's having supply issues? Is there an issue going on with the main supplier? Is there something where there is a need now in that space for that product? Then you, depending on the product, you look at the value prop. You look at the spend, right? If you have an 80-bed safety net hospital, $1,000 may be a lot of money. But if you have a 80 hospital system, you're going to have to figure out where that fits on the pecking order, and then how also, like, what is the difficulty of change and how many people need to be involved in that change, right? We all want health systems to be at a spot where they have a formulary and they have an auto sub list that we know, hey, if product A isn't on the shelf, we're bringing in product B and everyone's happy with it. But there's a lot of places still working to get to that point, especially now with all the disruptions. It's gotten even more convoluted, but there's just a lot that goes in. And does your health system how much inventory do they have on hand with the distributor and how much do they have to burn through? Because that's going to help you determine when you start having the clinical meetings and conversion talk opportunities. Because I think the worst thing for a supplier is to go in and present 6 months ago, and 6 months later you still don't have a PO because they haven't burned through their inventory, and now all your clinical end users have forgotten what product was supposed to be changed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really, it's really that whole process. Like, to your point, like what we would do is look at all the information, understand, all right, is this an opportunity? Is it on their radar? Can we present the savings? If yes, we get that done. We present to the supply chain team. We try to show them the full value of savings, rebates, admin fees, what changes. I think if if the if the supplier vendor could bring in, like, hey, these are the departments it's going to affect, that
Mm.
really helps. Because in some cases you may think that you've touched everybody, and then you realize you're trying to convert a product that respiratory therapy uses and nobody went to talk to them, and then when you do the conversion it blows up. So there's a lot of things that, like, we might not know. We can look at the launch document, we can look at things like that, but if like, hey, these are the 6 departments, make sure they're at the table. And do we need to be
Yeah.
part of that conversation when you talk to clinician or to the value analysis or whatever? Not always, but it's really going to help us on the front end tee up that conversation and figure out how we can get it in the queue. Or on the back end, help those vendors understand the process for getting that project into the health system's value analysis software. Right? Worst case scenarios, we have this conversation, we look at it, we see it's an opportunity, we present it, and they're like, no, thank you. Come back again in 18 months, we'll look at it then. Okay, then we have next steps, and we've closed the loop.
Yeah, I love it. That is a great kind of walkthrough. There's a lot of steps to the process, and these take time, right? Some can move faster than others, but really, I think you hit on a big one that I really liked is how many people are going to be involved in the process. Because if you miss somebody, it can delay it substantially, and that doesn't matter if it's value analysis get involved or supply chain get involved. But if you've missed the floor, or even if you've missed certain staff that have a really big voice in that process, it could slow it down, right? And knowing,
Or break it.
hey, yeah, well, or break it and just be like, oh, we missed so and so, in procurement, and they're gonna, like, I don't want anything to do with this now, right? So getting the right people involved early, which departments should touch it, have a really clean checklist of everybody this could touch, and share that with you and say, hey, these are all the people we think should see this, this product or service that we're bringing to the table. Is there anyone that you think might be missing, or is this overkill? That we want to start here and then let them pick and choose, right? But at least you're diving into what that individual hospital or health system's flow would be, and again, you're close to that, so you can really help out.
And I think another big topic we haven't discussed is messaging, right? Is how you're messaging the program. Um, because if you're in a committed program, right, a lot of people, whether it be value analysis, whether it be supply chain, whether it be vendor reps going into the facilities, going into the hospital and saying, you have to do this because of X committed program, is not going to put any of us in a great situation. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a way to message that better and say, look, like, yes, there is a GPO contract. We would like you to look at it. We will work with you on getting the correct information for your clinical team, supply chain, value analysis, all of that. But it goes back to, I think, what we talked about last week. Like, the messaging and the delivery of it all is key, because you don't want to back someone into a corner right away and give them no choice. And I think a lot of times we've run into situations where that's how it's pitched, and then we've lost that end user, that critical person, right away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult one, right? On and off contract spend, whether it's on or off performance contract spend or even on or off national contract spend. There's some more flexibility I think the members have if there's a real value and it's off national contract. But if it's off of performance group, committed programs, it's a lot harder to get anyone to look at it because like, obviously they got to meet commitment levels.
Unless
But
there's
I
a
agree with
nuance,
you.
right? Like if you can get, if you're a diversity, if you're, there is certain opportunities that our membership has chosen to, and again, you're correct, right? The committed programs are being decided. And in a lot of cases, they're the supplier partners that people already want to be with, right?
Mhm.
Again, the membership is making the decision, but the membership has also placed caveats on some of those agreements to allow disruptive technologies to come in and disruptive suppliers. So, diversity is a big one. A lot of states and cities have those commitments, and if you can come and you can service certain places, there is a way to success for you. Um, I'm working with a couple in South Carolina, just trying to figure out how we can partner together and see where we can get opportunities. But I've also at our breakthroughs conference received some feedback from some of the diversity suppliers that they don't necessarily feel the love. And I think it's, how do you find that happy medium? And I think it goes back to what we've discussed before. Like, you can't just say, I'm diversity, you got to look at me. You have to
Hmm.
come with more of that story to say, this is why we're different. This is why members use us today, or health systems use us today. This is where we get positive feedback and we can try to get traction. And maybe that's the thing too, is even in the committed programs, you do have a percentage of product that you don't have to buy from the contracted supplier. Maybe that's where you try to target is, hey, can we get 10%? Can we get 20%? And can we start showing the value prop there? Again, it just builds more of that credibility with the national GPOs that, hey, this supplier can perform, and it allows you to get your name recognition into the hospital community and start getting some brand recognition for your product.
And you become easier to work with too, right? Yeah, it resonates a lot with me. Instead of coming in and being like, you have to do this, or this is the only way that you're going to find these savings if you take advantage of our program or our diversity or our contract. And but if you can build it so that it looks like it fits into the puzzle of what the health system's trying to do, you're becoming a better partner, right? That's what everybody. What's a true partner? Well, someone who's willing to listen and mold into what needs to happen. You become more recognizable, and that gets shared, right? It gets shared amongst the committees. It gets shared amongst you and your peers. And like, this is something unique that we did, and it worked. So how do we build upon that? So it's flexibility in your contracting or your service, and not being so rigid and try to stick to the has to be this way because we wrote it that way. You don't have to break the T's and C's. You don't have to break your tiers, but just think about where maybe you fit in the puzzle by a SKU or a service versus the whole picture every single time. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because as
That's
as
great.
you know from your previous experience, right? Like, there is a huge level of concern from even going from an 80% tier to a 90%.
Hmm.
When at the end of the day, I was with a health system yesterday when I'm like, do you really need that extra 10%? Like, do you need to have 17 different products to make up 10% of your spend to make you feel comfortable when you can get one from a supplier that's going to solve all your needs? Like, yes, it sounds very challenging to go into those committed programs and to go to higher
Hmm.
levels. But I think the more you look at it, like, there is a way to balance that. Like, hey, 10% of the spend can go to the smaller vendor, 90% needs to go to this, or whatever. I mean, there's just ways, to your point, to massage those agreements to make sure everybody can show their value and provide what the members need.
Yeah. No, that's great. I just got one last question for you, and it might tie together a little bit what we've been talking about. But if you were going to coach, a vendor, like, hey, here's how you should be best approach, best prepared to approach a member. What are the three things that you would really want to say? Focus on these three things this will at least give you the best case scenario for your first approach. Introducing a contract or a service
To the hospital or to a GPO?
to the hospital, to the member.
I mean, I think it's understand the market they're in and where they are. What issues do they have to solve? What is the differentiator in your product that would make them entertain a conversation? And what clinical end users or any staff, I mean, because if it's a mop head, maybe you have a new innovative, you know, uh, way to clean the floor. I don't know. And three is what is the value prop of the product, both from the product life cycle, price at the pump, all the way to reimbursement and how you can lower the cost of the procedure or get them more revenue on the back end to make that a more profitable procedure. I mean, it's pretty simple. I know it's a hard ask, but there's a lot of resources out there to kind of see what the health systems are doing in your market. You can look at top 100. You could look at any of the publications to see where there's great performing facilities and facilities with opportunities. If you look at Becker's, there's some places out there that might be hurting for money or need money, like certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's just do your research and make sure you're positioning the message to the right people. And even maybe before that, like feel free to reach out to the GPO person and say, look, I'm new to this. We're new to the contract, trying to engage this hospital. These are the reasons why we think we can help you grow this area. And it's not just you need to grow admin fees, so you need to respond to my email. But it's, we all know that that's our goal, and we all know that everybody wants to make those better for, provide solutions to the hospital. But like, bring that to us and say, hey, is this a good fit right now? When do you think this is a good fit? Because we can say, look, they got, they're converting to a committed program right now. They have 130 conversions they have to make. You're not going to be prioritized until 2 years from now. So I would go inform your leadership that, hey, this is not going to happen for 2 years minimum because of commitments that they're already doing. Just that communication and saying, like, just honesty. And, just saying, hey, I don't know anything, or, hey, this is what we need to do, and these are the people looking at it. Can you help me try to fast track this? I think you can go all the way through.
No, I agree with that. And it also can be, okay, so this isn't the right opportunity for us right now. So why spin the wheels and why put all the resources into that hospital or health system? And hey, but this one is ready. This one, it fits perfectly. So I agree with you. You really kind of hit home today on just, telling your story the right way, your value prop, your opportunities, bringing it, well prepared and not starting from scratch, in your initial hello or in your initial presentation. It should be really diving into it. Three really good, strong bullet points. And, I really appreciate you diving into that. This was a little bit deeper conversation, right? A little bit more thought process around different things we do with strategies, different things you would do with departments, different things that you would do to try to, again, go back to what we talked about is helping you become a better trusted advisor for that member. And if us as the account executives, if you would, or the IDN directors and GPO strategy managers from a vendor can feed you the information that you need, it helps speed the process up a little bit too, right? So if we know what you're looking for and we can give you the right information up front and agree that this is a good opportunity versus knocking on every door and keep saying, well, everyone keeps saying no, can you help them go say yes? No, it's not a really good time. This is not going to fit, but I tell you where I could take it and it would be a great fit, right? That's the relationship you got to think about how to build. So yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic.
So I guess to wrap up what you just said, right? The closing is like, if a supplier, to make this whole trusted advisor thing work, right, is come to us or come to us together, because in this partnership and making me a more trusted advisor with the health system is I'm going to have to continuously bring them new innovative ideas or cost saving opportunities that they couldn't get on their own, right? So any supplier that comes to us with a value prop, we are eventually going to engage because there is going to be an opportunity to present itself in that area. Does it always present itself today? No. But I think if you reached out, you had an open conversation, this is what I'm trying to do. And even if you're brand new and you're like, look, I don't even know the first place to go, are you willing to have a conversation with us and talk through this?
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you 75% of the GPO people will have time to do that. Maybe 50, but you know what I mean? People will have that conversation. But I think the key to go back is once we have that discussion and you're ready to target the member, outside of the 3 bullet points I made, is remember the messaging of what is the problem you're trying to solve? What are the benefits and differentiators of your product? And how is it going to help the health system reduce costs and improve patient outcomes? Yep. And second, and the big point I think that we try to hit on before is keep the messaging very simple and remember the people that you're talking to probably don't understand a lot of what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And you need to harp on those benefits and differentiators of your solution that are obvious to you, but may not be obvious to the audience in the room.
Yep. Great advice. Great advice. And I think something you can really take home and think about your strategies. You're putting together your proposal, whether it's the first time, the second time, the fifth time, and with or without, that support of the GPO. But when you're talking to the member, those are really good strategies to use. And then if they aren't really quite getting the response or you're not quite sure, and you come to the account executive and say, here's all the things we've already tried, right? That helps you understand a lot more. Hey, all right, you know what? That's pretty good. Like you really have that partnership mentality. I can build on this, and maybe I can get around, a hurdle or two for you, and let's see if we can work on this because this is a new technology we'd love to see. So, yeah, I appreciate that feedback there, Chad, and I think it's something everybody can kind of learn from and think a little bit differently about how they approach health systems today. So, well, I'll tell you what, you've been a wealth of knowledge, and I hope the audience really finds some value in our conversation today. It's always nice to have a different perspective, right? Whether it's from a company or just things that we've learned along the way, but you've really brought some value to how to work with the GPO, why the GPO is continuously a value for manufacturers and on contracted vendors, but also things to think about to be better prepared when talking with the GPO, the members, and especially you and your team. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been great. You're welcome anytime to come back. We look forward to talking more and learning more from you maybe down the road. So thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Great conversation.